You are listening to part 46 of our series, 7 Medicines, The Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio. Hello, Susan, and welcome back to Time Monk Radio.
Hi, Gemini. I hope you had a pain-free week.
I did have a pain-free week. Thank you.
Now, sometimes when you're like studying something and really talking about something, and commonly known in medical schools, it's really easy to kind of think that you're attracting it. You know, the way when you hear a word that you didn't know before, and then suddenly it seems like everyone is saying it, but you'd never heard it before.
Yes, I do.
So I wish us all freedom from pain as we take a look here at herbs that can help us to relieve pain. I mentioned before that it seems that we're all in pain. As a matter of fact, I loved the way that a recent article that I was reading put it. It says, America is a nation in pain. And then it described all of the different pains that people might have. So let's see what we can do to relieve those pains. You have heard me say, I'm sure many times, that when I sit down in the evening, when it's the end of my day, right where I sit down is a bottle of tincture of Hypericum perforatum, known as St. John's wort or St. Jones wort. This herb helps to prevent lactic acid buildup in the muscles, and it also helps to get rid of lactic acid buildup in the muscles. So I often say, if when I get up from my chair I go, then I reach for the Hypericum. But sometimes when I sit down, I know I'm going to want a dose of Hypericum. I don't want to be in pain. None of us wants to be in pain. But I want to work hard. I want to use myself to my strength, to my utmost here on my homestead, and that involves running. It involves lifting heavy things. It involves a lot of physical things. So I want my Hypericum tincture right there, right next to me, available to relieve and even prevent any aches and pains. And we've talked about this at other times here on Time Monk, yes?
Yes.
Have you tried it out?
I have. I have taken St. John's wort for pain.
And what has been your experience?
It worked wonderfully. We were recently in New York City, and we walked a total, while we were there, probably over 30 miles, and I'm not used to doing that over a weekend. So I went straight over to a health food store, picked up some St. John's wort because we've discussed it here before, and what a relief that was.
So you took some and you felt results within an hour, half an hour?
I probably took acute doses of it, like 4 or 5 dropperfuls. So I would say probably within 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Easily.
Yeah.
I felt so much better. My husband did the same thing. He thought it was fantastic.
General muscle pain.
Yes.
Right. I have friends who run marathons. They put it in their water bottles.
Yep, that's what we did. We put it in some water, and it worked wonderfully.
So whether it's just, ordinary life or whether you're on vacation or running a marathon, one way to avoid pain and one way to get rid of general pain is Hypericum. High CBD cannabis tincture is even stronger.
I've not had that.
Cannabis produces substances called cannabinoids. And THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, is a cannabinoid and is well known for its effects on giving us the munchies and making us giggle, eh? So THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, is the part of marijuana that's thought of as making people high. CBD is a cannabinoid that stops pain. And I mean, really stops pain. I have seen people be able to wean themselves off of addictions to opiate drugs by using high CBD, cannabis tincture, and cannabis tincture is not addictive. High CBD tincture does not alter your mind. Remember back a year and a half ago when I fell in Costa Rica and smashed my wrist?
Yes.
And one of the things that I used to be able to basically go about my ordinary life, which included leading trips into the jungles, leading shamanic rituals, teaching, going on boat rides. No, I didn't go swimming. There were a few activities that I stayed back from, but not much. And the way that I was able to do that was taking very small doses, usually 3 to 5 drops of high CBD tincture every 2 to 4 hours.
How quickly did it work for you?
Usually within 5 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this is exactly the situation where someone would be offered opiate painkillers, where there has been a traumatic injury to a joint where it is grotesquely swollen, and the person is in acute and long-lasting pain. High CBD cannabis tincture is not just for that acute kind of pain, though. At one of my retreats, there was a woman who had been in what we talked about for the chronic lower back pain. Her chronic lower back pain had been going on for about 25 years, and we had some high CBD tincture. She found, again, that the effect was almost instantaneous and that very little had been able to affect it. And we discussed with her ways that she could procure that, which could be as simple as a flight to a state where cannabis is legal and you don't need a prescription, and you can find places that sell high CBD tincture. It is in certain states, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, and I believe California, it is an item of commerce. All right, you certainly won't find it in Manhattan. But if you are...
No, we didn't.
No, but if you're dealing with chronic pain, because such small amounts are effective, you probably would only have to take a vacation to one of these western states once every couple of years to keep yourself supplied with enough high CBD tincture to keep yourself fairly pain-free. I am eager to see if it is effective to help people who are dealing with migraines. Just in general, any place that you would think to use an opiate painkiller, I would first see if high CBD cannabis tincture could be used instead, or if the person is already on an opiate painkiller, if the amount of that could be reduced by using high CBD cannabis tincture. Really amazing herb at our disposal. And as you have heard me say, I consider cannabis an herb, not a drug, because it grows from the earth. People could then say to me, well, isn't poppy an herb as well? Poppy is indeed an herb, and a great many herbalists for thousands of years have used poppy to deal with pain, especially pain from trauma, pain from accidents. It was from using poppy that we began to understand the opiate class of drugs, in fact. So poppy starts off as simply as making a tea of poppy seed heads. Juliette Levy actually recommends that in her book on taking care of children. A child who is teething, a child who has something, where it needs to be sedated, a very brief boil of poppy heads and given to the child by the teaspoonful until it falls asleep, she considers quite safe and non-addictive. As we get deeper into the medicine of the poppy by cutting the ripe seed pod, collecting the white sap, and then concentrating that white sap, now we come to something that is stronger, we would not want to cook up a little opium and give it to a baby. In fact, most of us would not want to cook up a little opium, but it does relieve pain. It especially relieves emotional pain. And throughout the world, opium and opiates are renowned for not just releasing emotional pain, but releasing the creativity that lies within that emotional pain. Wit once said, the problem-free life makes no art. So within that pain is a great wellspring of creativity, which opium seems to open up. If we then go further yet, and not just extract and concentrate, but now purify, now we have drugs like heroin. Now we have drugs that are not just addictive, but can be quite destructive, although, again, they kill pain, they kill all kinds of pain. So again, we can see a kind of stepping up here just in this one plant. Nowadays, California poppy is used instead of opium poppy. Like opium poppy, it does contain some mild amounts of opiates. High CBD cannabis tincture does not contain opiates. And so both poppy head tea and California poppy in various guises, including tincture of the flowering plant, have also been used to help people who are dealing with addictions to opiate drugs. And you can go back to the archives a few weeks where we were talking in more detail about that. And, of course, the herbalist's favorite general painkiller ever since one sat under a willow tree is willow bark. Now, the salicins in willow are actually found in a fair number of plant species. So when we talk about willow, we are actually talking about willow, but we are also talking about a particular compound that is found in plants, which is salicin. And with acetic acid, which is vinegar, we can make acetylsalicylic acid, which is indeed aspirin. There are some very grave problems with aspirin. In fact, I was reading today that over a course of taking aspirin for decades, 85% of people who take that aspirin will have some kind of serious internal bleed, and a great many of them will be hospitalized, and that aspirin therapy is now pushing itself to the fore as a reason for hospitalization in elderly people. I am happy to tell you that willow does not do that. Willow does not interfere in the same way with the COX pathways, and so it does not make one prone to bleeding, although it is a very mild blood thinner. White willow bark is the primary part used, but tincture of the fresh buds of willow early in the spring, all parts of willow, even willow young bark or young twigs in vinegar, has been used as an excellent substitute without the severe side effects for aspirin. In my forest grows a wonderful small woodland plant, Gaultheria procumbens, also known as wintergreen. And wintergreen is an excellent source of salicins. Wintergreen leaves, harvested no more than one leaf from each plant because they are indeed very small plants, rarely getting bigger than 3 inches and rarely having more than 4 or 5 leaves. A single leaf harvested from each plant and put into a very small jar, covered with apple cider vinegar and allowed to steep together for 6 weeks, will yield a vinegar. A teaspoon full is about the equivalent of 2 aspirins in terms of the amount of acetylsalicylic acid present in it. Right there, right outside our back door. If you don't have white willow, it's okay. These compounds are found in all willows. Willows are salix, that's why the salicins come from them. as well as wintergreen, sweet birch, also known as river birch, and black birch, spirea, also known as bridal veil, and other plants. Lots and lots of painkillers to help relieve inflammation and bring down fevers all around us. Well, as I said last week, when you say pain to the herbalist doesn't think, oh, general thing to relieve pain, but the herbalist, like the homeopath, wants to know more. Tell me more about your pain. What kind of pain is it? And where is this pain? And not just where is the pain, but how does the pain actually feel? And how does it make you feel? What are the emotional connections to this pain? And the herbalist then chooses from among the literally hundreds of herbs available to help allay pain throughout the body, the herb that is most targeted to the pain that you might be experiencing. I've made for us all a short list of the herbs that I would be most likely to choose. In general, I'm not treating pain, I'm not treating disease, I'm not treating a diagnosis, I'm treating people. But for the way that we are talking about things, and certainly the way that drugs are talked about, we, while remembering that, are nonetheless going to use the language that makes it seem like the herb affects the pain. The herb is not so much affecting the pain as it is affecting the person. And this is why the herbalist has the box of 64 colors, because we are unique and individual beings. So let's look at some of the specific herbs that we might choose to deal with specific pains. Digestive pain is certainly a pain that almost every person experiences at least once in their lives, and some people over and over again. As you've heard me say, I travel with slippery elm powder that I have mixed with honey. I find it across the board the fastest, most effective reliever of all kinds of digestive pain, whether it's a gas pain, whether it's acid indigestion, whether it's a sense that things just aren't right with your liver and your gallbladder, or whatever other digestive pain you are experiencing. I have found slippery elm to be right there for me to relieve that pain, and relieve that pain fast. I've mentioned slippery elm before here on Time Monk Radio, and I've mentioned it in connection with people who are dealing with irritable bowel syndrome, an extremely painful disease, and how that can the slippery elm can relieve that pain. In people dealing with Crohn's disease, which is also extremely a painful disease, as is ulcerative colitis. In all of these cases, slippery elm is usually able to relieve the pain very quickly and with continued use to keep the pain at more tolerable levels. One of the things that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross taught us all was that the body in pain is not a body that is healing. She told us that at the beginning of her medical practice, it was rather standard care to let people be in pain. There was rather perhaps a Puritan belief there that pain was somehow strengthening to the soul. But more and more research showed that the body that was dealing with pain was not able to deal with what was causing the pain. And Elizabeth championed getting the body out of pain as the first step in the healing process. So slippery elm, although it is merely soothing and relieving to the pain, is the first step in healing. However, slippery elm goes deeper. With drugs, all we can do is relieve the pain, and then perhaps use drugs or other things to see if we can effect a healing. But with the herbs, often the herb that is relieving the pain is also the herb that is actually going to do the healing. Slippery elm cures those ulcers and the ulcerative colitis, calms down the inflammation in the irritable bowel syndrome, and resets the immune system in Crohn's disease so that it no longer attacks itself. It tightens up the wall of the intestines so that there is no more leakage through the gut, which calms down inflammation throughout the body. Slippery elm, a specific pain reliever, fast pain relief, and then it goes to work getting rid of what was causing the pain in the first place. If you don't have any slippery elm with you and you're in digestive pain, my next suggestion is to go to the supermarket and get some aromatic seeds. I favor fennel seed, but not every store sells fennel seed. You could also get caraway seed or cumin seed or coriander seed or dill seed. These are all aromatic seeds of the carrot and parsley family, and they are all very active in relieving digestive pain. A teaspoonful in a cup filled to the top with boiling water, stirred, that spoon then used to get a spoonful of honey to add to the brew, stirred again, and if you want to let it steep for another minute, you can, but it's actually ready to drink pretty much right away. We're making a tea, so we don't want to let it steep more than 3 minutes. A very light brew, and that can help relieve gas pains, usually before the cup of tea is done, as well as going to work within the digestive system to make the digestive system work better. Headaches are also a very common kind of pain. And the herb that is most frequently used for headaches is skullcap. Interesting name, isn't it? I have found skullcap extremely effective if it is made from the fresh flowering plant, and moderately effective if it is made from the dried plant. Feverfew is also the herbal specific for people dealing with migraine headaches. However, you can't take it. You have to eat it. You actually have to grow a feverfew plant and eat a leaf from your feverfew plant on a daily basis to prevent migraines from coming on. What I have been told is effective for some women is at the start of a migraine to take a dropper full of Hypericum tincture to release muscle tension, and then 5 to 30 drops of skullcap tincture, depending on whether you're using tincture of the fresh plant, in which case 5 drops, or tincture of the dried plant, in which case a dropper full. At the very beginning of a migraine, repeated every 15 to 20 minutes if necessary, will usually turn the corner and prevent that migraine. Off and on, I have been mentioning emotional pain. And often when we talk about pain, we disregard emotional pain. And yet emotional pain probably causes us to do graver harm to ourselves than physical pain. Physical pain can be unrelenting, and we can get angry at it, but emotional pain seems to sweep us down into places that we have difficult times seeing our own self-worth from. Motherwort is my favorite reliever of emotional pain. Motherwort, the tincture made from the flowering top of the plant, taken in dropperful doses or lesser doses, depending on the severity of the emotional pain, the anxiety, the worry that is going on. Tincture of flowering oats is also renowned throughout the world as being wonderful ally to those in emotional pain due to loss, someone near and dear, or some animal near and dear has died, has suffered trauma, and we are upset by it. Mother Wort to the rescue. The pain of a urinary bladder infection, of a urinary tract infection, is a pain that most women have in their repertoire of ouches. The herbalist says, keep some cranberry juice on hand. Even canned cranberry sauce from the supermarket will do. Cranberry contains a substance that prevents the bacteria that are causing that infection from hooking into the bladder lining. Eat cranberry. See if you can slide those bacteria on out. It should also relieve the pain. If you don't have cranberries, blueberries will do. And uva ursi, the herbalist's choice to relieve bladder pain, and corn silk. Uva ursi helps get rid of the bacteria that cause the bladder problems. Corn silk soothes the pain, especially if there's blood in the urine or acute pain. Corn silk, and usually I just stuff a handful of corn silk into a quart jar. You certainly couldn't weigh out a whole ounce of it. Are wonderful herbs for relieving the pain of bladder infection. The pain of an infected wound is another pain that many of us have experienced, whether in a small or a large way. Honey is the absolute painkiller and restorer, healer, indolent wounds, wounds slow to heal, ulcers of all types. Honey gets in there and gets rid of them. Skin-eating bacteria, MRSA infections, honey gets rid of them. Decubita, bed sores, diabetic ulcers, honey gets rid of them. Keep honey on hand. Any kind of honey, but the darker the honey, the more medicinal value that it has. Internally, Echinacea, well known for its infection-fighting abilities, is less well known for its ability to ease pain, and to ease pain fast, especially if there is an infected wound. Echinacea can be used externally on the wound to bring about very rapid changes. Achy when you have the flu or the cold, bone set. Eupatorium perfoliatum is the herbalist specific to relieve the break bone fever. That's why it's called bone set. Elder, of course, is wonderful for getting rid of the flu, but bone set is the herb that is going to relieve the pain. Joint pain, I just did a wonderful class called Happy Knees. We spent the whole day looking at ways to help those aching joints. And one of the most interesting of them is the application of a capsicum cream. That's cayenne by any other name. When cayenne is put onto the skin, it causes the nerve endings to release substance P, which is required for you to be able to experience pain, and it takes hours for the nerve to replace and replenish its substance P, and during all of that time, no joint pain. Gallbladder pain, dandelion is the herbalist specific for that kind of pain before or after meals. Neck and shoulder pain, another pain that seems to plague human beings. And we've talked about some of the things already to use, and that is Hypericum, both the tincture internally and the oil externally, as well as neuromuscular releases. Massage can sometimes make it worse. And arnica, homeopathic arnica, can do amazing work along with the release of the neuromuscular fascia. Oh, my goodness. So many wonderful things to share. And here we are at the last minutes of another show. As we move on into our exploration of specific drugs and specific problems that they can cause, I want to take a short break and to look a little more deeply into some problems with drugs. At this point, we are looking pretty much at the problems that drugs cause us when we take them. Shall we say we are looking at the side effects or the physical side effects of taking drugs, but there are other drug problems as well, and I'll be back next week to talk about those.
Thank you so much, Susan. And this concludes part 46 of our series, The 7 Medicines the Wise Woman Way with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio.